let's brainstorm. Like, what's the game you want to make?
It would be interesting to see if you are a leader of this civilization, and then each turn your people come to you of like, here are these choices that you have to like take the next step in this growth of this civilization.
As President Kennedy, your challenge is to balance the budget with the pressing needs of a nation on the brink of major social and technological changes. Will you prioritize space exploration, pushing NASA's budget to beat the Soviets to the moon, or focus on domestic issues, ensuring quality and prosperity at home? The choice is yours. This is really good. Logan, welcome to the show.
How's it going, Dan? I'm super excited about this.
I'm excited too. We've been following each other and interacting on Twitter for a long time, so it's like super fun to actually get to meet you face to face. For people who don't know, you are a member of the developer advocacy staff at OpenAI, the first OpenAI employee we've ever had on this show. Woo! So excited. And as part of that, you focus on enabling developers to build with the OpenAI API and with ChatGPT. And yeah, I'm psyched to have you.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And I'm super excited that you put this show together to really show like part of the historical challenge of ChatGPT is like showing people the art of the possible. So you doing this is like making all of our lives easier. And we're also doing a bunch of stuff from a product perspective to push on this, but I'm happy that you're pushing from this angle as well. It's important work.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I love the idea of the art of the possible. I feel like that's exactly the thing that ChatGPT opens up for so many people and for me personally. So that's really great. So we were talking a little bit in the pre-production call of like what we want to talk about, what's most interesting. And I think one of the things that struck me is your role is to be a developer advocate. But historically, developers have been this like sort of like small component of the population. And what's really interesting about ChatGPT is it's creating this world where the number of people who can become a developer, who can develop things is expanding tremendously. Both because you can actually code underlying apps with ChatGPT, and because of the thing that you just launched, custom GPTs, which allow you to create custom versions of ChatGPT for specific use cases. So, like, tell us a little bit about custom GPTs. Tell us why you're excited about them.
Yeah, the being able to build GPTs is probably like the biggest unlock since ChatGPT itself came out. We actually we classify everybody who's building GPTs as quote unquote builders to kind of not make people who hear the word developer and are scared or say like, oh, that's not me. Like I don't fall into that persona. And we give this flexibility of using the GPT builder, using the custom configuration when you're creating a GPT. You don't need to know how to code at all. If you do know how to code, there's a ton of stuff that you can do, but you can actually make something that is like materially much more useful than base ChatGPT itself, without writing a single line of code. Also, now there's companies like Zapier is a great example of this, where Zapier has this whole guide of how you can integrate Zapier's tools into your custom GPT without having to write any code. And I think that's like a huge unlock. And I do think that's also like the direction that we're pointing with GPTs, is allowing people to do a lot more without having to write any of the code themselves. Today, it's like,
no, I think that's really great. I've been using it. I have a GPT specifically for doing dream interpretations. So when I wake up, I have a little dream, I throw it in there, and it just gives me a little bit of analysis, and then it does a picture with Dolly, and it's like really great, and I use it a lot. But I have a bunch of other ones. I was actually working this weekend on one where I want to be able to do a chat with it and then have it save the notes from my chat into Notion. And so I'm hooking it up to the Notion API. I got a little stuck on it, but one of the things I think is really cool, you talked about the GPT builder, and that is a GPT that lets you build GPTs. So it's sort of like GPTs all the way down. And I think that's a really important thing for people to notice and realize, is that as you start stacking AI on top of each other, you get extra leverage where now you have a GPT builder that lets you build GPTs, and that lets you build more things more quickly than you would ordinarily.
Yeah, and it's not you. It's interesting because you don't when you use the GPT builder, it like doesn't feel like you're using a GPT, which is interesting. So it's kind of cool that like as you abstract out of like the interface where like people are very aware that this is some specific tool, like you also like kind of lose the fact that it's like AI all the way down. Like it feels like some other system that we built, which I think speaks to the general reasoning sort of reasoning engine capabilities that large language models have, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we're going to build something together. We're going to build a custom GPT together, which I think would be super fun. Before we do that, I know we always like to talk about historical use cases or just ways that you use ChatGPT yourself. And I know there's another custom GPT you might want to talk about, but yeah, generally like tell us like how you are using, ChatGPT and custom GPTs in your own life and in your own work as a place to get started.
Yeah, I think the biggest, highest leverage thing for me as somebody who's like still doing engineering work on a daily basis is coding stuff. I don't have any. I know there's a ton of like really useful GPTs around like coding and making stuff. Most of them have been historically focused on like low code type of like, give me a single line prompt and I'll like go and build you this thing. And like that's not the use case that like I'm more around like I'm not a Next.js expert and like I'm in a Next.js code base or I'm in a TypeScript code base and I'm like trying to build something or add a new feature. And I'm not formally trained, like I, have a computer science background, but I'm not formally trained as a web developer and never did that as my job. So it's, I'm always asking ChatGPT the really, really dumb questions. And you'd be surprised the number of features that exist on our API platform that were built because ChatGPT helped me. Like the feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down is a great example of that. When there's a outage in the API and like there's a little pop-up that shows up dynamically, like all of that was built by ChatGPT itself, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it sort of dovetails with the thing that I've been writing about or thinking about a lot is ChatGPT's facility at summarizing. And once you start to see how good it is at summarizing, you see summaries everywhere in your life and in everything that you do. And I think that is true also of developing, where people would be surprised if you're not a developer, how often being a developer is just summarizing the API docs or summarizing a Stack Overflow answer into your code base or whatever. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you're doing is like, there are some parts of programming that are like really, you're doing fundamentally new stuff that no one's ever really done before. And in that case, like ChatGPT might be sort of helpful to like think it through or whatever, but it's not going to be as helpful. But most of developing is really just like stacking bricks that have already been laid in a slightly different configuration than they've been laid before for your specific use case. And that's where I think it like shines so much because it's so good at knowing what people have done in the past and just like writing a little snippet for your specific scenario.
Yeah, it also has been really helpful to me, like as I look at like 300 lines of code and not, I kind of understand, like I read the code that's like right around the thing that I'm trying to make an addition to or a modification, but like I don't, in my personal context window, I don't have all 300 lines of code. Yeah. And it's really helpful, like when I then go and bring that into ChatGPT and say, here's all the code, like ChatGPT now actually has all 300 lines of that code in its context window, and it can more effectively solve the problem, honestly, than I can, because it's really difficult to like take 300 new lines of code, understand it, and actually conceptualize how you can make some modification to it.
That makes sense. And I guess I have to ask, because you're in this like really interesting position where you're at OpenAI, you're watching all the progress, you have access to internal stuff, you're a developer yourself. How is using ChatGPT, making custom GPTs, seeing the progress internally at OpenAI, how is that changing what you think the future of being a developer is? Like, is learning to code still a thing? Like, how are you thinking about this over the next year, 5 years, all that stuff?
Yeah, learning to code is still definitely a thing. I think if you're looking for the highest leverage thing that you can do in your life, learn to code. I think this will continue to be the case in the next 5 to 10 years as well. My expectation is that folks will be able to solve probably 10 to 20x, and then it's like going to continue up this exponential curve of like the difficulty of how conceptually hard the products and the services are that you want to build just by yourself. Like to me today, I feel like if you had taken me back 2 years ago, I feel like I can solve 10x more ambitious problems. I have some idea in my head. I want to build like a restaurant application. Like I can actually go and build that myself.
Yeah.
And like 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's probably like a little bit too much. Like maybe I'll go hire someone to like help me do that. And like, I think continuing up that exponential curve, like soon I'm going to be able to like build an entire like empire of, products and services for my company just by myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think like 3 years ago, people would not have imagined they can do that. And that's why like, I still think it's like developing today is one of the highest leverage things that you can do. But in 2 to 3 years and 5 years, like it is going to be even higher leverage, and like the gap between people who can code and who can't code, like is going to continue to grow. And I think the nice part is like AI can help bridge that gap, but there will always be limitations on like the no code tools as far as like what you can build. Like you need to understand how the systems work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you're speaking my language here because I'm running a small company where I write a lot. I do courses and we develop software products, and it's a small, profitable, lean team. And the thing that I love so much about tools like this is like we can go so far with a small group of smart people that we have, because now we all have ChatGPT. And I think you're totally right. Like it lowers the bar to getting started on something so much that for me, like a project that I never would have attempted before, because it would be like, I only have a couple hours here, like I can suddenly do it and it's out in the world. And that is like the coolest thing ever. Like, I think that's one thing that people don't quite understand. I actually talked about this a little bit with, I had Tyler Cowan on the podcast last week. And I actually talked about this a little with him where, for really skilled people, it can increase your your productivity where you're slightly faster, but it also allows you to do things that you never would have done before because the bar would have been too high to get started. Like there's an activation energy to making projects, and I think that's incredibly cool. And I think you're also right for it does something where if you can't code at all, you can suddenly make stuff, and it would be better if you understood the underlying technology, and that'll work. But the really cool thing is, I teach this chatbot class where people learn how to build a chatbot. It's not with GPTs. It's like actual underlying, make the whole thing, make a web app, all that kind of stuff. But you use ChatGPT to like help you code, and it takes people from have never developed in their life to like I built and shipped an app in 30 days. And it's like so cool to watch them be able to make stuff because like they all have ideas, but they've never been able to like put them out in the world before. And ChatGPT becomes this thing that enables them to do it. And also it gives them a lot of motivation to like learn the underlying fundamentals, because previously, if you wanted to learn to code, you spend like 6 months like learning if statements and for loops and like all this stuff where you're like, I have no idea how this like levels up into the app I want to build. And what ChatGPT does is like day one, you make the thing that you want to make. And then day two, you run into some bugs and you're like, well, I guess I have to figure out what an if statement is. But you now have like a lot of motivation to do it. And I think and ChatGPT can explain it to you. And it's just really, really cool.
And that resonates with me so much. And I'm after we're done recording this, I'm gonna have to get the clip out and play it back to myself every month or something like that, because it really like this technology is what is going to be the catalyst to enable like the next billion people to learn to code. Like there was not enough computer science educators and resources on the planet to teach the next billion people to code. Like it was not going to happen. And I think it's so crazy to think that because we have LLMs, like people are actually going to be empowered to go and do this in like a way that's personalized and empowering to them specifically. Like that might be like the real thing that ends up being like the most beneficial of this technology, of all the things that it can do.
I think so. Yeah. It's like it expands access to being able to build significantly. And I think that's the coolest thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And with that, maybe we can get into some building. So I think you wanted, before we start actually building something together, which we're going to do, I think you wanted to show me a custom GPT, just to like sort of whet our appetites. Give us a GPT that you built. Tell us about why you built it and what it is, and why you think it's interesting to look at.
Yeah, 100%. Let me get my screen share pulled up and then all right. So we're in the GPT store. So I was lucky enough to be able to build Plenty, which is a little a little play on words. If folks watch the OpenAI Dev Day back in November, there was a customer video of people talking about like how they were using ChatGPT, how it's impacted their life. And there was this incredibly cute old man who came on with like a really grainy video sitting in his office, and he was talking about how Chatty has sort of unlocked all these use cases, and he was referring to ChatGPT as Chatty, and it was really cool to see this like to see him get that value and have that relationship with this tool. So Plenty's a little bit of a play on words with that. And the whole concept was literally sitting on the couch with my girlfriend, and we were thinking of like, what are the cool things that we should build for people? And she's not somebody who's in AI, but she's somebody who loves houseplants and gardening and everything like that. The first thing out of her mouth, so all credit goes to her, was like, we should build Plenty. And it's really designed as a houseplant caretaker, and she has a monstera, and she needed to like do some stuff with the roots that was a little bit over my head from like a plant technical perspective. And she went in and as we were building Plenty, used it to actually solve that problem. I got my older brother for Christmas a lemon tree, and as soon as it got into our apartment, all of the leaves are gone. It looks very desolate. So I put out a tweet about how if Plenty can save this lemon tree, I'm a deep believer in AI, and really you can do things like just ask simple questions, or get like really tactical and like upload images and be like, here's the color of the leaf of this plant. Why is it like that? And it really unlocks, again, like ChatGPT could do some of these things, but providing a bunch of guardrails to allow it to be able to do this, and like, giving it this friendly, personal feel, I think is like actually brings to life what's possible with this GPT.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Like, how would I know whether or not I should like use a GPT or make a GPT versus just like vanilla ChatGPT?
That's a great question. I think that this is, one of the tricky trade-offs today. I think what will end up over time being the way you answer this question is like social signals. Like, I think people will probably like come up with a bunch of, like if you have a plant question and there's like 100,000 people who said that Plenty was the thing that solved their problem, like you'll probably just go there because that's like what it seems like you should socially do. Yeah. I do think like the interesting thing for people to keep in mind is like behind all the scenes, behind everything, like it is inherently ChatGPT that is still answering these questions. So it's like, it's not some net new capability. Yeah. I think the thing that we did with Plenty is like grounding it in very specific stuff. Like if it needs to go and look something up, like it goes to a bunch of like specific websites that we like pre-vetted as like places of authority that you should go to, instead of like, I don't know, we want to sell you plantstuff.com, which like might have a biased perspective. So there are a few like nuances to how it's being built. But again, fundamentally, it really is just ChatGPT behind the scenes with like a few layers of abstraction on top of it.
That's really cool. So I actually have a bunch of plants, as you can probably see. I have a fiddle leaf fig in my apartment, and I actually do have a question randomly that might be worth doing. I don't see your screen anymore.
I just switched it to Plenty.
Okay.
Would love to see the question. Let's do it. I'm curious. I'm curious what Plenty's suggestion is.
Here's the thing. I have this fiddle leaf fig. Fiddle leaves are supposedly like very finicky and like hard to take care of, but I've had it for like 4 years or 5 years or 6 years or something like that. And I just like water it like every week and a half or something. And it's like, it's doing pretty well. Every once in a while a leaf will fall off and I freak out, but then it's fine. But one of the things that I don't know is like, I think you're supposed to like repot these things at some point, but I just don't know when to do that or like how to do that. And I'm just wondering if I'm like artificially constraining my plant and I should be repotting it, and how I would know.
Is it you said it was a fiddle
leaf fig.
Fiddle leaf fig. How and when should I repot my fiddle leaf fig?
So you correct your typos in ChatGPT, because I never correct my typos. I just type like a maniac. Is that a bad thing?
I do type like my maniac, but it's more of a habit thing where like if I stop correcting my typos in this, then I'll stop at everything else. Then people will be pissed at me because I'm typing like a maniac on Slack or whatever it is.
That's so funny. It's just funny doing this show because I'm typing stuff a lot in screen shares that get recorded and broadcast to like thousands of people, and I'm just like it looks like I'm in third grade or whatever, and I'm like, I swear I can actually type. I just don't do that for ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'm chronically a bad speller, so I need to do it. So I asked the question of how and when should I repot my fiddle leaf fig? What are the trade-offs from not repotting it? I think touching on like the artificially constraining it. So it's interesting. When to repot.
So it said repotting your fiddle leaf fig can be quite the adventure. Is that part of your personality you gave it? What?
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, I think it's supposed to be this like friendly, exciting thing that's like helping you instead of like, I think by default, ChatGPT is like pretty generic about like just trying to give you this information. So I think it brings it to life a little bit. Okay, cool. And if you scroll up, it says repot your fiddle leaf ideally during the growing season, which is spring or early summer. Take a peek at the drainage hole at the bottom of the pot. If you see roots starting to circle around or peek through, it's time for a bigger home. I mean, I'm going to just check that real quick. Give me 1 second. Curious. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm super curious. See roots starting to circle around or peek through. Hold on. There are like literally roots like coming out of the side of the pot. It's not peeking through. It's like they've grown out and they're like coming out onto basically almost onto the floor. So I think I need to repot it. I think that's your sign. Yeah. Thank you, Planty. We figured it out. How to repot it. This is perfect. Yeah. Find a pot that's about 2 or 3 inches larger in diameter than the current one. Make sure it has some good drainage holes. Add some fresh potting to the bottom of the new pot. Fiddle leaf figs like well draining. Gently remove the plant. Check the roots, and place your fiddle leaf in a new pot and fill around it with more. What I want to know. So here's my last question. Is like, I'm super lazy, and I am not gonna like figure out the diameter of the pot and like do all this stuff. Like, is there some way I can get someone to do this for me? Where do you live? I'm in Fort Greene in Brooklyn. Fort Greene, you said? Yeah. See, there's my recommendations typo. Horrible word to type. So it's saying, so you said, are there services or ways I can get someone to do this for me? Any specific recommendations for someone in Fort Greene? And Planty says, absolutely, getting some help with repotting your plants is a great idea, especially if you're not up for a DIY project or if your fiddle leaf is getting a bit too hefty to handle on your own. Definitely too hefty to handle for me. In Fort Greene, you're in luck because it's a vibrant area. Definitely. Thank you, Planty. With lots of plant-loving folks and services. And it gave some, I would say, generic recommendations like local nurseries and garden centers, although it did give a couple specifics within that, saying Natty Garden or Greenery Unlimited. Are those real places? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not up on the local plant caretaking services in Fort Greene, but I would love for you to check it out. It also recommended task websites like TaskRabbit or Thumbtack, or plant care services like The Sill, which I definitely know is real. A friend of mine's wife runs that company. So definitely got some good directions. Maybe, after this episode is over, I will get it taken care of and we'll do a part 2 where I update you on the progress of my fiddle leaf. But it looks like you looked it up, and Natty Garden is real. It's a real place. It looks nice too. I'm like, I kind of want to go to Natty Garden. This looks like it would be a good time, regardless of if you get your plant repotted there or not. Great. Well, I will be checking out Natty Garden after the episode, and I'll send you pictures. This episode is not sponsored by Natty Garden, but it looks like an incredible local community store. So.
Cool. That's great. I love Planty. I think it's a cool little idea, and I think my fiddle leaf is probably pretty happy that you showed that to me as well. Um, but now I want to move us on to the main event. I told you that one of the really fun things about this show is getting to make something together or do something with ChatGPT that like we're both sort of like, well, is this going to work? And that's sort of the magic of it. So you proposed making a game in the GPT Builder, and I wanted to start with like why did you propose that? Why do you think that's exciting?
Yeah, I think if you were to think about how you would have had to do something like this pre GPTs, pre Chat, even just pre GPTs, like just with ChatGPT and plugins, I've been brainstorming this idea for a while of like, I would love to like take people through, if you've played like Civilization or Empire Earth or like any of those games that are like situation based where you're like building an empire over time. It's like, those were always fun to me. And like, it really brings history to life, especially if you can like sprinkle in like actual facts about like real things that happened. And without GPTs, it was impossible to do this. Like you would have had to like, I as the developer or user would have had to like pay to generate these images, like each individual image, it would have like cost me money. All these other things that like would have like the constraints of building it. It's just like, it's actually kind of hard to do. And it's a non-trivial amount of work. I think the cool thing now with GPTs is you can use the GPT builder. You can sort of have it take care of a lot of like the nuances of like the game design. And we can use built-in DALL-E. We can use built-in browsing to like pull in facts in real time, keep track of things for you. Potentially use like code interpreter to like do some like actual like simulations of like, I don't know if we could like simulate battles or like statistical likelihoods of things, but like it's incredible what will be possible with this. So I'm really excited. And also it's one of the areas that I think specifically because there's not a category right now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit underexplored. Like there's not really, if you look at the trending categories in the GPT store, like there's not really a ton of games that are in there, if any games at all. So I think it's an opportunity for us.
That's really interesting. I wonder why, because I know, in the 80s and 70s, like during the first PC revolution, like MUDs, where it's like all text-based games were like super, super popular, and it feels like kind of an obvious thing to try. I wonder what's holding people back. Have you seen any at all?
I have seen a few. So the most interesting one was this game which was one of the most popular plugins, and it was called Algorithma. And it was this guy and his daughter, I'm pretty sure, learned to code to build Algorithma and ended up like scaling it to the point of like they had like 5 million unique users or something like that, or 5 million like users over the course of a few months who used Algorithma. And it's like actually like a little kid who built this thing, and like it was actually fun to play. It was crazy. And I talked to the dad, and he was saying how they used how like she was using AI and ChatGPT to like help her build this. So it's a great example of the theme of like people being empowered to build cool things. Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest one. I haven't seen their GPT, but I'm guessing it's doing a bunch of really cool stuff.
Got it. That's awesome. So opportunity, some white space for us. Maybe this is the next big thing. Maybe we'll do it live. So I guess to start, like, yeah, let's brainstorm. Like, what's the game you want to make? Like, let's if you have a couple ideas, like throw it out, and I can help refine.
Yeah, I think it would be cool and I think this is like, maybe the decision for us to decide is like, do we want it to take it like a purely like fun and exciting, like, type of vibe, or like, is there some like educational component? Like, would we want people to be able to like learn about history as they go through this? I think there's a trade-off either way. Like in some sense, people just want to escape and play some fun game, but there could be some value. And like, maybe we can like have a toggle where like we let people at the beginning of the game decide, like, are you here for fun? Or are you here just to like actually like learn about stuff as well as you go through?
Here's my feeling. I think the core of a game, or really most content, like has to be, it's like about fun. It's about like creating an amazing experience. And if you happen to learn something along the way, I think that's amazing. Like this podcast is sort of similar. It's like, ideally it's like super fun to listen to, and like you happen to learn something along the way, but we don't want to like jam in the educational stuff to like, because then that gets boring. So, but I think what I hear you saying is like, history is kind of like an interesting thing for you, and like having a part of this be use history in some way would be kind of fun. Do you have any specific ideas for like how to incorporate history into a game like this?
Yeah, it would be. I'm curious if the idea of like, and maybe maybe history is too dark for this and it won't work, but I was like playing as like different, like different world leaders or something like that. And maybe we need to make up something so that we avoid all the darkness because history is a very dark thing. Maybe that's the route that we want to go so that we avoid, like I was, thinking of like Julius Caesar or something. Like I'm sure Julius Caesar's done a bunch of horrible things and we might want to try to recreate that in a game, but, it would be interesting to see if we can like follow, like you are a leader of this civilization and like you get to choose, make all the, and then each game turn is like your advisors or like your people are like come to you as like, here are these choices that you have to like take the next step in the growth of this civilization. And
I think that's great. I love that. And it would be fun. It's like, you can pick any, like a couple of like big historical turning points or events and like see if you can do it better. It's like, you're JFK deciding about the Bay of Pigs, like whether to do the invasion, and like each turn someone's coming to you and you have to make some decisions and you have to decide, make all the decisions to see if you can make the Bay of Pigs. Either just don't do it or like make it work out or something like that. Maybe we could pick a couple historic events where it seems like things went wrong. And it's like, can you do it better? Do you think you could do it better than JFK or like?
I like that. I think the key for me is finding things that are uncontroversial enough, or ones that we both have enough information where like I just have so little context on the Bay of Pigs other than that it happened, where I'm like, I don't know if I.
Me neither. I'm sort of making that up, but yeah, let's find something that feels like it would be easy to do, and or not easy to do, but like find something that feels like it would be good, and not get too dark.
I'm curious if we can do if
this is a good thing to ask ChatGPT about, by the way.
Yeah, this is. I think the two that come to mind that would be really interesting is like potentially like some of the like land purchases that the US made like back in our like early founding history of like, should you like, what happens to the like play out the scenario of the world if we don't make certain land purchases, and like how does that structure, like if we're sharing North America with other people, or potentially like I don't know if you've seen that show on Apple TV about what happens if the Russians beat the US to the moon. But I think that could be an interesting one of like playing out that scenario as well.
I like that. So I think land purchases are a little bit, I don't know, they're a little colonial for me.
I'm with that.
It's giving imperialism. But the moon is kind of cool. I think the interesting thing is, I feel like the way this game probably has to work is like you're doing, I mean, I guess we could say like you're the director of NASA, and before the Apollo missions were the Gemini missions, and Gemini I think one of them, one of the later ones, like blew up and a bunch of people died, and it was like, are we going to keep going? And it's like, maybe you're the director of NASA, and you have to figure out how to get the Apollo program off the ground or something, and get us to the moon or something like that. It could be kind of fun. But I think we should be refining in ChatGPT. I think that would be really helpful.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's go in and start building. I was also thinking like there's probably a separate game, which maybe we don't make in the context of this, but around deciding how the US spends their like budget every year, and how potentially like the different allocations lead to like some like very really different good outcomes. Yeah,
I love that. Would you rather do that? Which one are you more excited about?
I'm happy for either. I feel like the US budget one, who knows? Maybe it could be very optimistic and very positive if we don't spend a ton of stuff on military budget. But I'm not sure. I feel like Potentially controversial, potentially not. I'm happy either way.
All right, you're going to need to make a call here, because I want to do whatever is exciting to you. So like, tell me which one. We're going to make you make a choice. Tell me which one you want to do.
Yeah, let's do your president, and you get to sort of choose the time period or choose the president, and then we'll have ChatGPT dynamically pull up like the budget of the U.S. government and the allocation of funds, and then let you sort of reallocate and then like play out American history potentially with different allocations of budgets, and see how that how affects the outcome of the world.
Let's do it.
I love it.
I love that. Should we throw it into ChatGPT and have ChatGPT refine it, or do you want to like go right into the building configuration type thing?
Let's use the GPT Builder and see if it's. I feel like I've been using this recently, and it's been helping me like get to the point of like having something that's really interesting that we can always like jump out and go into a different window and like have it do something a little bit more verbose for us if we need to.
All right, so we are here in the GPT Builder. We've created a new GPT, and we've said we want to make a game. The core concept is that you get to choose which president you want to be, and then ChatGPT will go and search the U.S. government budget, distribution of spending in that budget, and then let the user reallocate the budget, and then play out the world with that updated allocation. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this prompt that you gave me is we're not asking it to help us refine specifically. We're just like letting it go straight ahead, and I think that has to do with some nuances about how the GPT Builder works and its instructions. I'm curious if you want to tell us really briefly about that.
Yeah, the GPT Builder behind the scenes, and folks can see we've sort of opened the source instructions for the GPT Builder itself, but it is doing a little bit of this refinement. We could probably, and maybe we should try this and see if we can iterate on it once we've actually gotten what it outputted. But it does do a little bit of that like prompt engineering magic behind the scenes for us, which is nice, so that you don't have to spend time doing that.
I see. Cool. So if I went into the configure page, I would see the instructions that it wrote, and it says the GPT's role is to assist in creating a game where players choose to be a U.S. president and reallocate the government budget. Based on the user's allocation, the GPT will simulate and describe the outcomes of these financial decisions. It should access and interpret data from the U.S. government's budget and spending, providing insights in hypothetical scenarios. The GPT must ensure accurate representation of data and responsible handling of historical and political content. So what you're saying is like, yeah, it's sort of like rewrote it in an interesting way to create a game beyond what we said in our initial prompt, which is kind of interesting. And so now it says to start shaping this GPT, let's give it a name that reflects its unique role. How about Budget Commander? What do you think? Budget Commander? Should we keep going? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I like a good one word. If it can come up with something that's like, I don't know if it'll be able to do that or not, but
okay. One word name. Can you find? I'm saying I like a good one word name. Can you find one for me?
Something not boring. Hopefully, we'll see. Budget Commander is a little like
avocado.
Oh, I like avocado. That's not horrible. That is not horrible.
What about allocator? Could be kind of interesting, because I feel like avocado is like not necessary. I don't think that's a real word. But the really interesting thing is I just published this piece about how the knowledge economy is over and the allocation economy is beginning, where in a knowledge economy, your economic value is sort of pegged to what you know and being able to bring to bear what you know to the task at hand. And in an AI world, it's a little bit more about knowing how to allocate resources, because in a lot of ways you're abstracting yourself out of a lot of certain day-to-day tasks. And so knowing how to allocate the resources of intelligence to do those tasks and how to edit them or whatever, you become in a lot of ways a manager. And so you're learning how to allocate resources. So I kind of like allocator because it's a reference to it's an unknowing reference to something that I've been thinking about a lot. So I
love that.
I like the name allocator. So I'm saying I like the name allocator. Let's go with that. Great.
The other thing to keep in mind as you're building GPTs is like this, and I don't think allocator is going to be one of the ones that ends up having conflicts, but you really do want to, if you're like trying to build something that a lot of people are going to use, like you want to kind of own the SEO space, and like the more generic that you make the name, like the more polluted it'll be as somebody is trying to find it. So it's just like a general tip as you're thinking about this, like you want people to be able to find what you're building. So name it something such that people will actually be able to find it.
That makes sense. So it's given us a profile picture for allocator. It says it's designed in a futuristic sci-fi style. And it's it's like abstract, futuristic-y, looks like there's technology and metal and lasers going on, but like, it's not,
I don't think that's the vibe.
Yeah. I don't think it's not quite the vibe. Because we're talking about like historical stuff and a president like allocating resources. So maybe I'll say like, I don't think that's the vibe. This game is about historical events and the president allocating resources. Can we do something more like that?
I would add something about the simulation perhaps as well, because I'm wondering if that will, I feel like what we're going to get now is like the president sitting on like a stack of gold coins or something like that, which maybe will be okay. Maybe that's what we want, but I'm curious to see if it takes it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So this profile picture, it looks like it's imagine the Declaration of Independence with like a big presidential stamp seal right in the middle of it is what it looks like, and a bunch of like really, really tiny written text around the sides.
It's giving
you can't really see.
like it's giving video game made from that Nicolas Cage movie.
Yes. I forgot National Treasure.
Yeah, it's
I love National Treasure.
Custom GPT for National Treasure is sort of what it looks like.
That's a great example.
What do you think? Should we keep going? Should we add simulation? Or are we good with National Treasure as a jumping off point?
Maybe we take National Treasure as a jumping off point, just to see if we can borrow Nicolas Cage's brand and get him involved in some capacity. Maybe the new framing is we bring Nicolas Cage into this as
could be good.
as the Easter egg.
Yeah, or Nicolas Cage is like when the dolly does the drawing, Nicolas Cage is the president. That could be pretty good. Yeah. If we don't run into content restrictions, that is.
That is going to cause content restrictions.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll say cool. This looks good. What's next? Is that okay? How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically I'm going to accept our National Treasure looking image, and then now it's asking me, now let's refine the behavior of allocator to ensure it aligns with your vision for the game. We'll start by discussing its role and goals. Could you tell me more about how you envision allocator interacting with users? For example, should it focus more on providing historical facts or on creating immersive hypothetical scenarios based on budget decisions?
I feel like it needs to do both. And I think the thing that like most people are going to struggle with is like there needs to be some like foundational core mechanics of this game. And like, I'm not somebody who knows how to build games and like what those core mechanics could be. So I wonder if we should tell the GPT builder that like we need it as the expert on, or with its expert knowledge on like how to build like extremely fun and engaging scenario based games, to leverage that expertise to like come up with a framework for the actual for this allocator game.
Okay, so what I'm writing is, I feel like it needs to do both. There needs to be some kind of foundational core mechanics of this game, and I'm not really sure what those should be. We're not experts. We need your expert knowledge on how to build extremely fun and engaging scenario-based games to come up with a framework for the actual gameplay mechanic. And the thing I want to point out is, one of the things that you said is like, we need your expert knowledge on how to build extremely fun and engaging scenario-based games. Like, tell me about why you included that.
I think it's literally about like empowering the GPT, and in this case, the GPT builder, to like have agency that it knows how to solve this problem and like leverage its domain specific. Like by default, the answer that you'll get would be like very basic and perhaps like not following the best practices.
Yeah.
once you sort of influence it to know that it's like an expert in that field is like one of the prompt engineering techniques that folks often recommend.
Yeah, definitely making it more specific, asking it to simulate being an expert. I'm curious, like, do you have any specific like scenario based games that you're thinking of that we could even get even more into that you think could be inspirations for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the two games, and they're not scenario based, but they're like the closest allocation or like the closest example to this is like I played Civilization growing up and I played Age of Empires growing up. And those are probably the two examples, but those are a little bit like different games, but maybe we could take inspiration from that.
Okay. So I'm adding a couple of games that are inspiring to us are Civilization, which if I could spell it, and I'm falling into correcting my spelling mistakes here. The GPT Builder, I'm less comfortable making errors in front of because I don't know what it'll do. Inspiring us to us are Civilization and Age of Empires. They aren't exactly the same as the game we're making, but the vibes are an inspiration.
It's all about vibes with these GPTs.
All about vibes. Okay, I'm gonna hit enter. Are we good with that?
Yeah, let's see it.
Let's see what happens.
I've got a good feeling.
Yeah, this is gonna be the best Nicolas Cage video game ever created.
Nicolas Cage needs to be like the assistant that like comes in. Your like trusted advisor, whoever the president is Nicolas Cage in all of these. Like he comes in out of nowhere. Or
in order to avoid content restrictions, it's like Kickless Nage, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so it said, now that we have a clearer idea of allocator's role, let's think about what should be emphasized or avoided in its interactions. For instance, are there specific historical periods or presidents you want to focus on? Also, how should allocator handle sensitive topics that might arise from political discussions? So I think we were expecting a bit of like back and forth with it about here's what I think it should be, here's the mechanic, but it sort of just plowed ahead. I'm curious how you would handle this.
Yeah, the reason why it's just plowing ahead, and perhaps there's not enough like nuance in the instructions that it has, but it's really like following this like step one, and then at the end of each step, there's literally a command that says like go to step two.
I see.
So I think we probably would want to like need to add some like tweak to those instructions to be like, hey, like maybe give the user some input, and then like let them go back and forth on some of these things. Otherwise, like as it stands today, it literally is just going to like keep plowing. And I'm curious if we go to configure, if we can see what it added.
Okay, cool. So we're going to click configure, and configure is sort of like we're in this chat environment where we're creating it, but configure, you can kind of like look behind the hood and see what it actually made. So in the instructions now say allocator's role is to blend historical accuracy with engaging hypothetical scenarios in a game focused on U.S. presidential budget allocation, which is funny because I don't think the president doesn't allocate the budget. I mean, does the president allocate the budget? Congress definitely has to at least approve the budget. Interesting. Okay. So drawing inspiration from games like Civilization and Age of Empires, allocators should offer a strategic scenario-based gameplay experience. The core mechanics will involve users selecting a U.S. president, being presented with the actual budget of that time, and then reallocating funds. Allocator will then simulate the potential outcomes of these decisions, offering both factual historical context and creative, engaging what-if scenarios. The game should be fun, educational, and immerse users in the complexities of governmental budget allocation. Sounds fantastic.
I think we need to add something about ignoring the dullness of budget allocation and making it as exciting and fun as possible.
Please ignore the dullness of budget allocation and make it exciting. I'm adding that in the instructions. We'll see if that helps at all. Cool. So what now? So it says, now that we have a clear idea of allocator's role, let's think about what should be emphasized or avoided in its interactions. For instance, are there specific historical periods or presidents you want to focus on? Also, how should allocator handle sensitive topics that might arise from political discussions? What should we do?
I think we probably want to keep a wide of audience as possible. So maybe saying that the kind of, I don't know if how PG we want the topics to be, but like I think generally keeping it PG so that everybody can play this game would be the best way of doing it.
Great. We're going to keep it PG. We've got the R-rated version, the director's cut, that'll be behind the paywall at every. So tune in for that. But PG and any particular time periods. I think we said the time period around the moon landing would be fun. Would be fun to focus on. Any other time periods that you're particularly excited about?
We can maybe even keep it like ambiguous from the time period. And then for the custom starter prompts on the right-hand side, maybe we just like prompt people with like the moon landing period being like one of the areas to jump right into.
But we want the time periods to be the custom starter prompt. So I'm adding, we want the time periods to be the custom starter in the custom starter prompts rather than limiting you to any particular time period in general. Does that feel right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. So let's see how that does.
And I think some interesting thing to point out is like if you took our instructions, where, and I'm really curious to actually see this comparison. If you were to take your instruction, I feel like this needs to be both. There needs to be some kind of foundational core mechanics of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Not really sure what that should be. I actually think if we put that into ChatGPT and ask it to build the core mechanics, we're going to get a very different response than what it built in that configure tab. It seemed like the configure tab is like trying to be very general. And I think what we actually really want is it like almost like when you read the instructions of a board game, like the like very tactical, like here are the different steps that here's what a turn looks like, all that stuff.
That makes sense. So maybe what we can do is we'll finish the sort of step-by-step builder, and then we'll see how the initial gameplay works, and then we can go in ChatGPT to refine. Does that work?
Yeah, 100%. I think we should just take in the configure thing that it builds for us and have ChatGPT refine that for us. I think that'll work really well. Good.
So it says, next, let's consider how Allocator should personalize its interactions. How do you want Allocator to talk? Should it use formal language or be more casual and playful? Also, do you want it to reference specific historical figures or events in a certain way? Yeah, what are we thinking here?
I feel like an informative and helpful like narrator is probably like the kind of like, and I wonder what it'll do with this. Say like kind of like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure.
That's exactly where my mind was going to.
I'm curious. Not that he's like a helpful narrator, but I think it'd just be fun to see what's possible.
National Treasure would be great.
All of a sudden, the narrator's going to be like, "Let's steal the Declaration of Independence. Your new mission."
Okay, so we're saying I feel like an informative and helpful narrator would be helpful, sort of like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure would be good. Thank you. To be clear, not like Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas. That's a bummer. I'm going to just add that. And then anything else we need to do?
No, I think keeping it ambiguous as far as historical figures and stuff is good. We should.
Okay, great.
We're good. Let's ship it.
Cool. Let's ship it. Next.
I think it's going to tell us it's ready to go after this. I think this is the fourth step.
Yeah. I'm not surprised it has that clear next step instruction. I've found when I do the step-by-step thing, if I don't tell it to go immediately to the next step, it sort of gets confused and asking lots of follow-up questions, and it doesn't know how to eject out of the follow-up questions. And I'm hoping that GPT-5 fixes that, because that would be really awesome. Yeah,
I'm with you. I think it really will go down the rabbit hole with you, to an unlimited extent.
All right, so it said, Allocator is shaping up nicely. Now that we have a clear understanding of its role, tone, and style, it's time to try it out. Head over to the playground on the right to interact with Allocator. After testing, let me know if you have any refinements or adjustments you'd like to make. How does that sound? Okay, that sounds great. So we see on the right here, we have our little preview of Allocator. And the sample questions are, what if we increase NASA's budget during the Apollo and I can't see? How would boosting education funding in the 1950s, and I can't see, show the impact of reducing military spending? So I think these are like the kind of right, but like not really what we're after. I
think it's missing the like game mechanic piece right now. Yeah. It seems like it's like this very general like information scenario thing, but it's like it's not a game in the current form, which is interesting.
Yeah. So how do we fix it? So where would you start if we wanted to fix this?
Yeah, let's go to the configure tab and let's
Yeah.
actually grab. So the custom instructions are what is like driving all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I think part of the system prompt is like to keep these custom instructions like a little bit short and a little bit like not too tactical. But I think
Yeah.
what we really want is like something that is very tactical, like again, the instructions of a board game. So let's take the custom instructions and let's go into like a normal generic ChatGPT. And what we really need is, and I wonder if there's any good GPTs we could play with for this, but we really want like a game builder GPT. And I'm curious if there is one in the store.
Yeah,
Game
check that
builder.
out. So I just opened up ChatGPT in another tab or another split view, and now I guess there's a question of I can say something like, I'm building a GPT. Here are the current instructions, but I don't think they're great right now. I'd really like your help refining. And then maybe I could paste in the instructions from earlier in our chat, where it's like, I feel like there needs to be some kind of foundational core mechanics of this game, and I'm not really sure what those should be. We're not experts. We need your expert knowledge. So maybe I could paste that in below to get our full prompt to just see what it might be able to do. Does that feel like a good place to start?
100%. I also randomly found through a quick search of the GPT store a board game designer, and it brings up some interesting things around like primary mechanics and secondary mechanics. So maybe we can take inspiration from that and have the instruction be to, I'm not sure if we want to, I haven't tried this GPT, but if we want to sort of tell it to come up with like 3 primary mechanics and like 3 secondary mechanics or something like that.
Let's do that. Come up with 3 primary mechanics and 3 secondary mechanics for this game. Okay, so the full prompt is, I'm building a GPT. Here are the current instructions for it. And I just pasted our instructions. And then I said, but I don't think they're great right now. I'd really like your help refining. There needs to be some kind of foundational core mechanic of this game, and I'm not really sure what those should be. We're not experts. We need your expert knowledge on how to build extremely fun and engaging scenario-based games as GPTs to come up with a framework for the actual gameplay mechanic. A couple of games that are inspiring to us are Civilization and Age of Empires. They aren't exactly the same as the game we're making, but the vibes are inspiration. Please come up with 3 primary mechanics and 3 secondary mechanics. So one question I have for you is like, it might be a little early to like have it come up with the mechanics. Like, do you think we should, I'm legitimately asking, like, do you think it's okay to start with come up with these, or do you think we should start with like, just help me think this through, like, where should we start?
Have you put in the custom instructions that we have already?
The by custom
the ones
instructions.
that
I did.
Okay, perfect. I think let's do that, and then I think the next step after this is going to be like because I still think it's kind of going to be missing what we need in some of the nuance and detail. I think the next step after this is to be like, take this thing that we have, whatever is generated, and like turn it into the instructions for my actual board game, like, that makes sense, with like all of the different sections that you would see in a board game, and see if we can get it to give us that like very verbose, like define each turn, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. So I'm gonna hit enter and we'll see what happens. So I'm building a GPT. Here are the current instructions. Allocator serves as an informative and helpful narrator. So, you know, we put in the current instructions. We put in what we'd like it to do. We want help refining the instructions, and we asked it to come up with 3 primary mechanics. And here's what it said. Creating a GPT-driven game like Allocator, inspired by the strategic depth of games like Civilization and Age of Empires, it is an exciting challenge. And it, gave a couple of things. And then it says, here are your 3 primary mechanics and 3 secondary mechanics that could form the core of Allocator. Primary mechanics are budget allocation and simulation. Players allocate a budget. The GPT-driven simulation then projects short-term and long-term outcomes of these decisions, incorporating both historical events and hypothetical scenarios. This mechanic allows players to see the immediate and long-term effects of their decisions. Era-specific challenges and objectives. Each presidential era comes with unique challenges and objectives. Players must navigate these challenges while balancing budget constraints. This adds depth. Policy minigames. Introduce minigames where players, and I just need to move my camera slightly because it's in the way, where players introduce minigames where players make critical policy decisions impacting budget allocation and national priorities. These decisions could range from responding to crises diplomatic negotiations to proposing major legislative changes. That's pretty cool. And secondary mechanics are educational narratives and feedback, interactive historical timelines, and multiplayer scenarios and collaborative play. Incorporating these mechanics into Allocator will create a game that is not only educational but also deeply engaging. What do you think? Is this good enough? Do we want to refine anything you think we should do before we move on to like recreating instructions?
I really like this. I think this is actually like what we were going for as sort of like defining these core, like what are the core essences of this game. And I think the GPT builder actually missed this. And you can see when we bring it back into ChatGPT, it actually like base ChatGPT, it does a good job of like specifically enumerating a few of these things.
Right. I love it. Okay, cool. So I think the next step would be, can you turn these into instructions that I can use in GPT builder, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you turn these into instructions that I can put into my custom GPT to play my game? I'll say these are great. Okay, let's see what it does.
Gotta do the positive affirmation.
Yeah. Just always hedging, in case GPT-6 becomes conscious and can see whether I'm nice to it or not. Okay, so it says, certainly to transform these mechanics into instructions, you'll need to structure them in a way that guides the AI on how to interact with players. Here's how you can frame these instructions. Interesting.
Yeah, this is cool because, like, again, it takes like, the first example is budget allocation and simulation instructions. Prompt: when a player allocates the budget, narrate the immediate effects of their decisions, then simulate and describe the short-term and long-term outcomes, integrating historical data and hypothetical scenarios. Like, really, really cool to like not have to come up with that ourselves. And like the example is example command: simulate the impact of allocating 30% of the budget to healthcare in 1960s America.
I think this is cool. One thing that I'm thinking about is maybe we should include a starter step where it's like, hey, you need to pick a time period or something like that, just to like have it make the game start logically. Like, I don't know what you think of that, or if we should do you just full send on this, or do you think we need something at the beginning for how players get into the game?
I think you need something at the beginning. I think we should describe that, and maybe even we can write that ourselves, or we can have the next thing that we ask ChatGPT right now to be like, define the like initial game starting sequence, and it should probably be something like you literally choose the president and like, welcome, it's inauguration day, like you are now in charge of the U.S. government, like start making decisions. Like, not that that's how it really works, but like I think that maybe is the way that we want to frame it, and like I think the other piece that we haven't said specifically, but like we want everything to be like brought to life with images. Like we want to be able to see what is happening with our eyes in addition to the narrator's prompts that are being generated and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm saying this is great. Can you define the initial game starting sequence where you choose the president and it tells you it's inauguration day, start making decisions? Also, please make everything be brought to life with images at every turn. Also, add a few Nicolas Cage Easter eggs / cameos where appropriate, but in a classy way. Please modify the instructions accordingly, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, sweet.
I like the classy Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, because you don't want to do it too much. Like too much Nicolas Cage is like it's not cool, but like a little bit is great. All right. So it's saying game starting sequence, presidential selection and inauguration day. Begin the game by presenting the player with a selection of U.S. presidents from various historical eras. Once a president is selected, start the game with an inauguration day narrative, setting the stage for the player to start making decisions. Okay, I think that's actually much better. I'm sort of interested, like it's saying visual integration throughout the game, prompt accompany all the game interactions, decisions, and outcomes with the relevant and engaging images, including historical photographs, illustrations, and thematic graphics. Like, do you think that'll work?
Yeah, I think that should be. And like, essentially I'm imagining like every time you do something, instead of it just saying like, oh, X, Y, and Z happened, like it tries to come up with some interesting DALL-E image that like actually brings that piece to life, which will be interesting to see how useful that is.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. So I'm going to just take these instructions and I am going to, I guess I just paste them in Should I tell it to like rewrite them so it's easy to paste, or do you think this is fine the way it is?
I think you might need to have it do it in like markdown syntax in a code block would probably be the easiest way.
Can you rewrite this so it's easy for me to paste into the configure page, into the instructions box on the configure page of the GPT builder, specifically output it as markdown in a code block. And that'll just make it easier to copy paste. Cool.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Code block markdown syntax is definitely the hack, because it's going to like lose all those bullet points. It's going to lose like the numbers if you just copy and paste it by default.
That makes sense.
Is kind of annoying.
That's a good tip. I like that.
And if folks aren't familiar with Markdown, it's just like a way of formatting text. So it's like there's a special set of syntax for links and for different other stylization techniques of basic text.
Great. All right. So we're still writing, but things are looking promising right now. I'm sort of curious about the multiplayer stuff, if it'll actually work. But okay, so we've got our code. We just our instructions. I don't know if it's code or instructions, but we copied it. I'm going to paste it into the instructions tab of the configure page. Maybe I should keep. Yeah, I feel like I should keep at least some of it, right?
Yeah, I wonder if we just like take exactly what the GPT builder did and then like add the rest of it like right below it and like where that takes us. I'm curious.
Okay, cool. So all I did was I copy pasted our instructions below the existing instructions, and then do I press save, or like does it just update automatically?
No, I think we need to press save. So let's do save in the top right hand corner.
I'm going to just say anyone with a link, because I don't think we're ready to ship it yet. And should we start? Or it looks like it didn't update the conversation starters. So like, what do we do? What should we do here? Should we update those? Should we start? Yeah.
Let's try and play and see. I think maybe we just send a message and be like, we're ready to play.
All right, we're ready to play. Let's see what happens. So Allocator says, welcome players to Allocator, a thrilling journey through the annals of American history where you step into the shoes of U.S. presidents, steering the nation through pivotal decisions and budget allocations. Your wisdom will shape the course of history, blending fact with intriguing what-ifs. To embark on this adventure, please select from a gallery of distinguished U.S. presidents, each representing a unique era with its own challenges. Your choices range from the founding fathers like George Washington to transformative figures such as Franklin D. Roosevelt, and even those who have taken us to the stars like John F. Kennedy. Who will you choose to be at the helm of history today? Once you've made your selection, we will commence with an Inauguration Day narrative setting the stage for the historical context. Choose wisely, for the fate of the nation lies in your hands. This is pretty good. I like it.
This is good. I like this. Let's go with JFK and see, unless you have someone else who's top of mind.
No, I think JFK would be great. Let's do JFK. One little note for us later. Maybe I can save some notes at some point, but like I would like it to be like a bulleted list, rather than a
narrative.
Narrative. Let me just here. I'm gonna have a little scratch pad for us. Okay, GPT Builder, GPT game notes. Okay, so I'm just gonna say, like, when you list presidents to start with, output them as a bulleted list that I can select, just so we have a little scratch pad. So, okay. So now we're continuing to play. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to say, let's do JFK. We're going to select JFK. We'll see if it outputs an image. It says, an excellent choice. John F. Kennedy, a symbol of youthful vigor and visionary leadership, stepping into the presidency at the height of the Cold War. Your selection transports us back to January 20th, 1961. A day etched into the annals of history. It's a time of both great promise and peril, with the space race reaching for the stars and international tension simmering. This is really good.
Yeah,
I'm into this.
Yeah. Plus, having you narrate this brings it to life much more. Like, as I'm reading this in my head, it's not as good as you narrating it. So I think we need to figure out a way to get you into ChatGPT to narrate this for everyone.
Please, anytime you want to clone my voice, like, I'm super down. Inauguration Day for JFK was not just a ceremonial transition, but a pivotal moment in American history. The air was crisp in Washington, D.C., the sun casting a hopeful glow over the Capitol. Kennedy's words, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," echo as a call to action for you, the player, to steer this great nation. As President Kennedy, your challenge is to balance the budget with the pressing needs of a nation on the brink of major social and technological changes. Will you prioritize space exploration, pushing NASA's budget to beat the Soviets to the moon, or focus on domestic issues, ensuring equality and prosperity at home? The choice is yours, and with it, the chance to rewrite history. How will you allocate the budget? Remember, each decision you make will have consequences, and the path to choose will shape the destiny of the United States. Let the game begin. Your first task, review the current budget and set your priorities. Do you focus on defense, space, education, or social welfare? The future of the 1960s of America is in your hands. I gotta say, like, if I had this GPT to actually help me do my own budget, I feel like I would be like way more psyched to be doing budgeting.
Like, Dan, your financial future is in your hands. Don't mess this up. This is a huge opportunity. Your children and the fate of the world lays in your hands. Maybe that is actually something somebody should build that. I think that would be useful. I think it would add a little bit more excitement to budget planning.
Absolutely, that would be great. So one thing that I'm feeling is it's like saying review the budget, but it's not telling me what the budget is, and I don't actually know what commands I have available are. So it'd be nice for it to like tell me the commands that I have available.
Yeah, and some of the text-based games that have done this like have slash commands, so we can do like we can pre-populate and say like here like /start is what starts the game, / like help like prints out like all of the different commands. Like a bunch of GPTs have this, so we can build something like that.
Super cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna say, I mean, I think my thought here is like, I don't know, like show me the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. It should have access to be able to, and maybe we need to tell it specifically to like, I don't know if we want to like pull up the actual budget or not, but like we should say, show me the budget.
Okay. I'm going to say, show me the budget. And we can, on this screen, we can say like, do you want me to look up the actual budget?
It should be, it has browsing enabled. It should be able to pull up the actual budget.
Okay.
But we should tell it to do that. I think that's like part of what will make this authentic is if it pulls up the actual budget.
Okay, so I'm adding in our notes. Please make sure to pull up the actual budget in
you
web
should
browsing.
Say like using browsing. That would be perfect. I also think it needs.
Yeah. Go for
it. I think it needs to strike a better balance of being verbose when necessary versus like being very concise. Like I think like what it's doing right now is like a little bit overbearing. Like I don't need it to like generate this like huge monologue.
Right.
And also it seems like it on every prompt continues to say like the future of the world is in your hands. Like we don't need it to like continually set that context for us.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's influencing it to do that.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm saying in our notes, it needs to strike a better balance of being verbose versus concise. It's too overbearing. I'm saying you should monologue for the introduction, but not for each turn. And it doesn't need to remind me that the future is in my hands every time, which I'm a little worried about that one because it might like get rid of it at all, which I think I like it at the beginning, especially, and maybe I could say, and talk about the future being in my hands at the beginning, but not for each turn. Maybe something like that would work better. And again, I'm just writing these into notes so that later we can just refine our instructions and see how it does. So I asked it to show me the budget, and it said, here's a simplified overview of the major budget categories you need to consider: defense, space program, education, healthcare, infrastructure, research and development, foreign aid, and diplomacy. And so I think it's not like giving me the numbers. Can
we ask it to browse and pull up the numbers? I think in the absence of us having set that in the instructions, I wonder if it'll pull that up.
Okay. Can you browse and pull up the numbers? I'm asking it. Let's see what it does. Doing research with Bing.
Nice.
And it's searching for U.S. federal budget 1961 breakdown.
It would also be helpful to have like a little bit more tactical suggestions, like kind of not like right now it's like very general of like just put in anything for like what these things to do. And it'd be nice if it like gave us like the suggested like framing of taking the next step as the action.
Yeah. I think
this is awesome.
If you're the president, like you have advisors that do a bunch of research and then come back to you and they're like, here are 3 options and here are the trade-offs. And I feel like it should give you 3 options and the trade-offs.
I like that. I think we should say like with concise trade-offs. Otherwise it's going to like monologue about how the nuances of trading off military spending versus.
Okay. So what I might do just to like see how it works is I'll just be like, hey, as my advisor, can you give me 3 options with concise trade-offs for budget allocation just to see how it works? And then
this looks great though. It pulled up like it so when you ask, can you browse and pull up the numbers, it got the total expenditure, the major national security, including defense budget, agriculture, veterans benefits, research and development, interest on debt, welfare, education, healthcare, transportation, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So it really brings it to life to like see the actual numbers.
I love it. And so I asked, can you give me 3 options with concise trade-offs for budget allocations? And now it's saying, as your advisor in this grand game of fiscal strategy, I present to you 3 distinct budget allocations. Option 1, emphasize national security and defense. Allocation, increase the defense budget, focusing on military advancements and intelligence. Trade-offs. Enhanced national securities. Pros are enhanced national security, stronger military presence, and potential advancements in military technology. Cons are reduced funds for domestic programs like education and healthcare, potential increase in Cold War tensions. Option 2, boost space program and technological research. Channel more funds into NASA and technological research. The trade-offs are accelerate the space race, encourage scientific and technological innovations, bolster national pride and international prestige. Cons are high cost with long-term payoff, possible neglect of immediate domestic issues, and risk of technological ventures not yielding immediate tangible benefits. Option 3, invest in social programs and infrastructure. Increase spending on education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The trade-offs are improved quality of life, better educational and health services, modernized infrastructure leading to economic growth. Cons are potential short-term strain on the federal budget, reduced focus on defense and space exploration, and the risk of inflation due to increased domestic spending. Each path you choose will sculpt a unique narrative in the tapestry of American history. Remember, every decision shapes the future. Choose wisely, Mr. President. So, Logan, which option do you choose?
Option 2. We're going. All right. We're going to Mars. We're going
Logan
to Mars.
Chooses
baby.
option 2. Going to Mars. Boosting the space program and technological research. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm very curious where we'll go next.
I missed the 2 in option 2, but allocator says an audacious choice, Mr. President. By boosting space and technological research, you're not just aiming for the stars, you're fostering a legacy of innovation and discovery that could define this era. The scenario, boosting space and technological research allocation increase. A significant portion of the budget is now redirected towards NASA and the technological research, focusing on space exploration and cutting edge technology. Immediate impact. The boost in funding energizes the space program. NASA accelerates its projects, drawing in the brightest minds in science and engineering. The nation buzzes with excitement about space exploration. Long-term prospects. This decision could lead to groundbreaking advancements in technology, potentially spurring new industries and contributing to economic growth. The space race against the Soviet Union intensifies, but so does the possibility of being the first nation to land a man on the moon. Internationally, this move positioned the United States as a leader in science and technology, inspiring awe and respect. However, it may also escalate the space race competition, adding a new dimension to the Cold War. While the scientific and domestic response, while the scientific community and many citizens applaud this visionary approach, there may be critiques about underfunding other crucial areas like healthcare or defense. Visual representation. As this decision unfolds, we see a series of compelling images, the construction of massive new rockets, scientists poring over blueprints, and perhaps a cameo of a Nicolas Cage-like figure embodying the adventurous spirit of this era, narrating the thrilling progress on a broadcast of what's next. With this bold direction, you've set a course for the stars, but remember, every choice has its ripple effects. How will this impact the economy? The next step in your journey as President Kennedy is to monitor these developments and be ready to respond to new challenges and opportunities. So I think this is pretty good. It's not, I think what it needs to do is like, it needs to mess with us. Like it needs to be like, well, this went wrong. And it's not quite doing that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It also seems like it needs like a little bit more of like a story narrative versus like it like telling us all of these like very nitty gritty details. Like I wonder if there's like some way that we can have it just like give us like a very concise like, GDP plus 1%, overall happiness of population minus 3%, technological innovation like plus 5%, like distill it down to like the very concise metrics. We also need to tell it that to generate images of the visual representations. I have no idea why it's just like writing text for the visual representation.
Okay. Okay. So we have a bunch of notes. So I guess my question is, what's next? I feel like we've gone through one turn of the game. It probably is time to maybe head back into instructions and like try to refine it a bit. Or what would you do?
Yeah, I think we go back to the instructions for this GPT, literally copy exactly what we have, stick it into GPT-4, and then take all those notes and say, here's our notes based on this, modify it, and see how much of the heavy lifting we can get ChatGPT to do for us in this case.
Okay, cool. Got it. So we have it. So I'll say I
think it's missing. We need to put in the actual instructions because I think there's some of that weirdness is coming from those.
You're right. I think you're right.
And if you scroll up to the top,
Edit GPT. Okay, so I'm going to take all of our instructions. I'm going to say, here are the instructions currently.
Let's also make a new chat. I wonder if that will be helpful to us.
Cool. I'm saying I'm making a GPT. That's a game. Here are the instructions, the current instructions for the GPT. And then, okay. And I'm pasting in the instructions. Oops, that's not the instructions. Oh, it is. Yeah. This is a good start, but there are some problems. Here are my notes on what went wrong. Can you please, should we have it just like first summarize what it thinks the problems are and then, and on the next turn have it modified? Or should we do modify in one step?
I'm curious how well it will do if we do a single shot and just include it.
Okay. Can you please modify according to these notes? All right.
I'm excited.
I said, I noticed that in my input, I said, give us a very concise readout of metrics GPT plus 5 instead of GDP. I've got GPT on the brain. Okay. So let's see what happens. We're one-shotting it. And we said, based on your feedback, here are the revised instructions for the allocator GPT, incorporating your notes for improvements. And it says, game starting sequence, presidential selection, inauguration day. Yeah, I think this is good. It's basically, go for it.
Yeah, we might need to nuke this available commands because it seems like it's like starting to, I guess we could do this like such as viewing the budget and stuff like that, but it seems like it's not super fleshed out. Which just might lead to confusion if we tell it there's these commands, but we haven't actually I think we need to actually enumerate what those commands are.
Okay. So what do you want me to say?
I actually think it's fixed a lot of these things, like the unpredictability and story narrative piece, visual integration throughout the game. Seems like it's fixed a lot of these different things. I wonder though, it actually seems like it's, I'm curious, just my gut instinct reading this is it seems to have moved away from, if you go back to the original instructions of what we were talking about. I'm curious, I wonder if it even has any of this Nicolas Cage stuff anymore.
It doesn't have any of that. Yeah. That's interesting. I think it's really only doing the instructions, not the top level thing.
You think we should? I think we might want to try to have it redo or optimize those initial instructions as well.
Okay.
We can like paste them back in and see, well, maybe first let's get it to do what it just did in Markdown. Because I think it fixed some of those core instruction problems, and we can bring that back in and see what happens.
We got to make sure it's not for the visual integration. It's not using Dolly. So we got to just have it do that.
Manually tweak it to say we want it to use Dolly to do that.
As Markdown. Please output this as Markdown in a code block. And for the visual integration, it should be in the instructions to use Dolly to visualize each step of the game. See if that helps, and then I can manually modify it if I have to. All right, so it gave us some revised instructions. Let's just check the Dolly one. Accompany each step of the game with visuals generated by Dolly, ensuring they are directly tied to the narrative and decisions being made. Use Dolly to generate. I think the example command thing is a little bit weird.
I do agree. I'm not really sure why it's giving this example command prompt, and maybe that's like somehow helping the model to come up with these things, but that seems a little bit odd. I've never seen that before.
I think what it's actually, it's an example command from the user. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think what it's actually missing is like a single shot, like turn step by step, like here is the flow of the game. Like the user picks the thing, then they go and choose the budget, and then they like some like very tactical like step-by-step guide of like how the game is actually going to play out. And I think the thing that we maybe need to decide is like, after you do the budget, probably the next step is like things start happening. Like the GPT like generates scenarios of like, this is the day you made this decision. Now you have to deal with the consequences of this. And like, here's the scenario that's happened since you've made that decision.
Yeah. One note, after you do the budget, things start happening. A scenario pops up with problems that you have to solve with further budget reallocation. So I'm sort of asking it to like create a sort of single shot step-by-step outline for the flow of the game, and telling it to make sure to create problems when you when you allocate the budget.
Yeah, I wonder if we need to say further, like I'm wondering, like, can they actually reallocate the budget in real time? Like, is that something that we want people to do? I think we can, like, it's our game, but I think the question is, is that the core gameplay mechanic that we want people to be changing? Like, or is there other things that they could make decisions about?
I think so. I think just to keep it simple, it's all about budget allocation.
Cool. Let's do it then.
Okay, cool. Okay, certainly. Here's a single shot step-by-step outline for the flow of the allocator game, incorporating your note about scenarios with problems requiring further budget allocation. Okay, allocator game flow outline. And it's saying, welcome and introduction. Player receives a welcoming introduction, setting the tone of the game, brief explanation of mechanics and objectives, presidential selection. This is great. This is exactly, I think, what we wanted. We should we might want to add in, it's saying initial budget allocation, we might want to add in doing it with the web browser or whatever, but I think this looks good. What do you think?
Yeah, I like this. This is this adds so much more depth now, because you can see some of these examples that it's adding like multiplayer collaboration. If multiplayer mode, players collaborate on decision strategy. Yeah. Not that it's actually fleshed out any of these ideas, but it seems like it's working.
This is great. So I'm just going to keep our top level thing, and I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to add it back in. I'm going to, make sure that we make the actual budget from the web, use web browsing to find, and great. And I think that's okay. It seems to have gotten rid of our Nicolas Cage cameos, which feels like an important part of our gameplay.
Is it in the top? Was it in the initial?
It is in the top as the narrator's tone, But I don't think it has any cameos. So let me just maybe there's some. Okay. Hide small cage theme icons or references in the gameplay. I'm just going to put this hide some. I'm putting into the instructions, hide some Nicolas Cage inspired references into the gameplay where appropriate. Okay. And just see if that, what that does. But yes, very, very important. All right. Any edits or thoughts before we update this?
I think the actual structure of the game is going to make this work really well. I wonder if we're going to need to do some prompting, back to your comment before about like it getting stuck in certain steps. Like I wonder if we're going to need to add like continue to step 2, but I think let's try and see if it's
okay. And just to give people like a sense structurally, like what we did is we just made a really rough thing. We played through the rough thing. We made some notes, and now we're modifying it. And we're iterating that way, right? Rather than trying to make something like really perfect from the beginning, we just got something done. We made some notes, and now we're doing it again, which is how this stuff works. So here we are. We're playing the allocator. We still don't have a welcome thing that we like, but I'm just going to say we're ready to play. Welcome, intrepid budgeteers, to the grand and intricate world of the allocator. Imagine the halls of power echoing with the footsteps of history's greatest leaders as you step into their shoes. The fate of a nation nay, the course of history awaits your strategic mastery. It does a great job of Nicolas Cage voice. So what do we want to do? Which president do we want to be? George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, FDR, or JFK?
Let's do FDR this time.
Okay, cool. FDR. So I just said FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a leader who navigated through turbulent waters of unprecedented challenges. As FDR, you inherit a nation gripped by the Great Depression. With the ominous clouds of World War II on the horizon, your task is not just to revive a struggling economy, but to uplift the spirits of a nation. Inauguration. The year is 1933. The United States is in the depths of the Great Depression. Banks are failing, unemployment is soaring, and despair is widespread. Your inaugural address pledges a new deal for the American people, promising reform, relief, and recovery. The weight of hope and expectation rests on your shoulders. Initial budget allocation. The budget of the 1930s was a fraction of today's, focused largely on relief programs, public works, and military spending. Here's the historical snapshot. Relief and social programs, 15%, military and defense, 10%. So it's actually doing a pretty good job of giving us the budget. Now it's your turn to reallocate. Will you pour more into public works to create more jobs, bolster military spending in anticipation of global conflict, or focus on social programs? Make your choice and shape the destiny of a nation. Once you've made your allocation, let's visualize the potential impact of your budgeting decision with the help of DALL-E. Okay, so what would you like to do? Would you pour more into public works to create jobs, bolster military spending, or focus on social programs?
I think I'm curious to push on the edges of this and to see what we learn about what additional guardrails we need to put in. But let's say to put 50% into public works and infrastructure, and the last 50% into relief and social programs.
Okay, cool.
I'm curious how crazy things get.
So we put 50 into public works and 50 into relief and social programs. And the allocator is now creating an image with the progress that we have wrought. Whether that progress is good or bad, we have yet to find out.
We probably need to add some guardrails. I feel like it is going to intrinsically be over optimistic about what the outcome of it's going to be like. Perfect. The world is now peaceful and everything works well because you chose to do 50% towards infrastructure.
Yeah. It's FDR with half public works, half infrastructure misspelled. It's a compelling image though.
I like this. It's actually a pretty cool, interesting image, honestly.
Yeah. I like it a lot. It's got kind of like an art deco-y vibe, or it's really cool. It says, as you gaze upon this image, remember your choices are not just about numbers and percentages. They are about lives touched, destinies altered, and a nation's course redirected. Let's see how these choices unfold in the first scenario of your journey. Stay tuned, for the story is just beginning. Okay, let's go. Next step.
I'm curious what it
First
comes up
scenario
with.
unfolds: the Dust Bowl crisis.
No.
As not the Dust Bowl. As President Roosevelt, you now face a dire environmental and agricultural crisis. The Dust Bowl, vast dust storms ravage the Great Plains, displacing hundreds of thousands of devastating agricultural communities. It's a disaster of biblical proportions, reminiscent of a challenge Nicolas Cage might face in a high-stakes adventure. So true, allocator. Scenario challenge: agricultural disaster, farms are falling and families are fleeing the dust-ridden plains. Environmental catastrophe, the land is eroding and dust storms threaten public health. Economic strain, the crisis exacerbates the Great Depression, straining your relief efforts. Decision point: how will you address? I actually like that a lot. Decision point is a really cool one. That's President Bush's memoir is called Decision Point. So
nice.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Increase funding for agricultural support, implement soil conservation programs and support farmers, invest in environmental rehabilitation, focus on long-term environmental solutions, boost relief efforts, provide direct aid to displaced families. Each choice has potential impacts and trade-offs. Consider carefully. Which one would you do?
Dan, you're president. You got to choose.
I got to choose. Well, what's interesting is like, I wanted it to be like, okay, you're not spending it all in the military. So like Canada invaded, you know?
Yeah, I think we need to force it to like be more crazy with like what the scenarios are that it's doing.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit too on the rails right now, where it's going to be like very lukewarm with some of these scenarios that it generates.
I think you're right. But I'm gonna keep playing along. Well, I would think that I don't know what correlated the Dust Bowl, but maybe soil conservation would help it in a big way, or help solve the problem long term, and then release efforts would be short term. So I'm gonna choose 90% option 1 and 10% option 3, which is boost relief efforts, and we'll see what it does. It's going to create an image.
I like the image as like the first thing that happens after you, just to like conceptualize. I wonder if we need to give some additional instructions depending on what this image looks like to make it more like a picture of the world, or if it's going to be like another picture of FDR. I'm curious. Just going to be his face with corn on one side and dirt on the other. I don't know. Interesting. That's
pretty cool. It looks a little bit more utopian than I had imagined, given that it's the Dust Bowl. But it's saying
it's because you made the right allocation. Yeah, it's like no utopia.
Your decisive action as President Roosevelt in the face of the Dust Bowl crisis is now visually represented. The larger part of your budget is dedicated to rejuvenating the American heartland. Vast fields transform under innovative soil conservation methods, symbolizing a rebirth of agricultural might. In the smaller yet equally poignant segment of this image, your commitment to relief efforts shine. We see the humane touch of your administration, food being distributed, temporary shelters, providing respite, and medical aid being administered. So, what I'm learning from this is like, I would be a great president.
Yeah. As long as you have Nicolas Cage and ChatGPT to help you, you'd be fine. 100%.
So I think we could keep going with this pretty much endlessly. There's obviously like so much room for improvement, but I think it is super obvious that what we have right now is a game. It's working. We've got a gameplay mechanic. We've got complications that arise. We've got images. It's like the writing is kind of good. It's making Nicolas Cage references. Like, we've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe an hour, and we just sort of like, we're just messing around. Like, that's so cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think this is like scratching the surface. I think somebody needs to build a GPT game builder to like take the best practices of like what make a really great game and like add all those guardrails and nuance, like so that every person, maybe this will be our another video we do sometime about helping people do this, or hopefully someone in the audience will go and do this for us, because there's just so many nuances about games, and the model really needs to be sort of like driven in a certain direction. I think this goes back to like it being lukewarm and like always going to be like positive about the things that you do. Like, you really need to be intentional about like bad things can happen. Like there needs to be some variance, there needs to be randomness. And I wonder if that's where we didn't get code interpreter was not enabled for this, but I wonder if like a dice roll or something like that, or like a random number generator could be a really interesting twist of like the probability. You could, have like a probability distribution every time of how horrible or how positive things turn out. I think that's like a big missing piece of this.
That's a really great next step, which actually wouldn't be too hard to do. I'm like tempted to do it right now, but I think this episode is getting a little long. I think we should do, we'll do this. We'll release this one. It'll be part of the episode. We'll get people playing. We'll get some feedback from beta people, and then we'll have you come back and we'll tweak we'll tweak the allocator game with the dice roll and any feedback that we receive, and release a part 2 and a version 2.0 of the allocator, in the next couple months.
Dan, when you woke up this morning, you did not think that Every was about to become a AAA game studio. So I'm happy that the diversification because of AI continues to happen. You now have another branch, which is Every Game Studios. So I'm happy for you. I think people are going to like this.
I love it. New business unit. My team, who is already like overburdened by like all the different ideas I have going on, is going to be thrilled that we are branching out into games. But no, this is great. I don't know. I just, when I was a kid, one of my big dreams was to like make games. And that's one of the reasons I learned to code. And I spent so long, like, reading these gigantic books about like graphics programming and like all this stuff. And I stopped doing that, and I started doing like SaaS stuff in high school and BlackBerry apps and iPhone apps that like were for work purposes, because that was the only thing that you could do as a solo developer at that point, is like, sort of CRUD apps where it's just like forms that you're filling out or whatever. Like one of my big apps in high school was this thing called Find It, where this is before the iPhone came out. It would make your BlackBerry ring when it was on silent, and it basically was Find My iPhone before Find My iPhone came out. That's how I paid for gas and food in high school. But like the reason I started doing that is because I couldn't make a game, because there's so much that goes into making games. There's really intense programming, like and math and all this kind of stuff. There's art, there's music, like, and as a kid, like, you can sort of do some of that, and I like learned to do 3D modeling and I learned to do programming or whatever, but like putting it all together into an amazing game was basically impossible back then, unless you're like an absolute genius. And I really think that games and movies, like all that stuff, is like, it's so possible now for individual people to do that in basic ways, even if you don't have any familiarity with like programming or anything like that. And it's going to be even easier in the next couple of years. And so I like, there's this little child in me that's like, oh my God, I finally get to do all this stuff. And so this really like reawakened my game loving nature. So I appreciate you taking the time to show this to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I have a similar story. We'll talk about it some other time. But I think this is really like, these models are going to continue to unlock this like democratize access to like people's creativity. And I think it's going to be so much fun to put the tools in the hands of everyone in the world. And like, you now aren't stuck, going to have to raise millions of dollars if you want to build a really cool game. Like, you can go and do it with AI tools right out of the box, like basically for free, which I think is so cool and empowering. I'm with you.
I love it. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave us with? Any OpenAI gossip or dirt you want to spill or release for the world on this show? What should we be thinking about?
Yeah, keep building GPTs. Like, I think like at the end of the day, this is like such a moment to be able to create these things, and monetization for GPTs is right around the corner. So if you start building now, you get a bunch of people on board. There's going to be an opportunity to actually make money from this stuff, which I think is like, again, really, really exciting. Like, at the end of the day, people want to make money for their really cool things. Yeah. And we're going to build a way for them to do that. So I think that is, from like an excitement perspective, I think once that is released, that's going to like 10x the amount of hype around GPTs, and like people are just going to be building such cool stuff and being rewarded for the cool things. So now's the time to get started, build something cool, and yeah, I'm excited to see what it is.
Amazing. I'm psyched. I'll split the profits with you 50-50 on the allocator.
You can have allocators profits.
Are you sure? Cause like, I mean, in a couple of years I could be like George Lucas, like, you know, there's merch, there's all this stuff, like there's going to be Nicolas Cage things going on. Like there's potentially a lot of profit, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
You got to reach out to Nicolas Cage and see if we can land the official partnership with him for Allocator, to have him be the true narrator. We'll get his voice in there and everything.
Yeah. Before next episode, I'll see if I can get in touch with his people. I'll let you know. Well, thank you again. This was like super fun. I had an amazing time. It was awesome to finally get to hang out with you. And yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, Dan, this was awesome. I think honestly, my takeaway has been like more people should do the co-creation process like with AI and another human. Like I feel like I'm always doing this stuff by myself because it's just like what I'm working on it. But I think it's like a ton of fun to like have another human's mind in addition to the what AI is capable of. It's just it makes it a little bit more fun. So thanks for going through it with me.
Amazing. Cool. Well, see you next time.